so she would let people just go and go and go. With Chair Foster in place now, that's not the same at all. Foster is, she'll move things along. She's a very smart woman, very capable, but she's also nowhere near as nice as Kate. So I'm sure the meetings move much more quickly. How you doing, Krista? You're still the liaison to BZA?
Yeah, we're voting this week, but I still still plan to.
What about Blazinski? Is she coming as far as we know?
Excuse me.
Okay.
She's still on the board?
I thought she was. Then again, it's been 18 months since we've had a meeting, so.
Yeah.
What's our alternate situation like currently? Do we have alternate board members?
That is a great question. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So Nick, you were on the board when we last had a meeting, but I think you were just absent from that last
That was the
meeting.
meeting prior to that, yes.
Yes,
Which I think was in June, July, something like
yeah.
that.
Well, we're at about 7:03 PM, so let's call the meeting to order, and if Plazinski is able to join us, that'll be great. This is a meeting of the City of Ferndale's Board of Zoning Appeals. The date is March 17th, 2025. The meeting will come to order at 7:03 PM. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body authorized by Article 24, Section 19.01 of the City of Ferndale's Code of Ordinances. The BZA is a body of limited powers. We're restricted by the City of Ferndale's zoning ordinance and by Michigan law. The BZA is authorized to interpret the zoning ordinance and the zoning map, consult with and advise public officials and agencies, citizens, and other public and civic bodies regarding the city's zoning ordinance and master plan, hear and decide appeals made by administrative officials or bodies charged with enforcing the ordinance, and to analyze and rule upon variance requests as permitted under the ordinance. The BZA does not have the power or the authority to amend the zoning ordinance or to disregard its provisions or to rezone parcels of land. Changes to the ordinance must originate with the City Council, not with the BZA. So we'll start with the roll call, and I'll note before we even begin that we already have indications that Board Member Palmer and Board Member Mark are going to be absent today. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to excuse the absences of board members Palmer and Monk.
I move to excuse Palmer and board members who are absent with notice.
Thank you. Motion by Board Member Azar. Any support?
Second.
Support by Fiore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Board members Palmer and Monk are excused. We'll hold off on Blazinski until later in the agenda here. And let's go ahead now with the roll call.
Azar,
Here.
Fiore,
Here.
Williamson,
Here.
Klavansky,
Here.
Palmer, Monk, Councilmember Sabatini.
Here.
Okay, and for Blazinski, before we even move forward from this, do we know whether she is actually still on the board?
I don't believe so. Yes.
Is she not listed as a board member on the city's website at this point? I don't know whether she has resigned. It's possible that's happened in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Did you guys hear?
But if she's not on a list, if you guys have a list of board members and she's not on it,
We can update that, yeah.
probably assume that she has resigned. I guess we can add that to administrative items at the end to look into clarifying that. So next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any proposed changes or additions to the agenda as proposed? Right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Moved by Azar. Any support?
Support.
Supported by Sabatini. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries, and the agenda is approved. That takes us to our next item, which is approval of the minutes. So we have not had an actual in-person meeting since September 17th, 2024. I had to read the minutes a couple of times to refresh my recollection as to what actually happened at that meeting. And for myself, I have no proposed changes to those minutes, but does anyone else have any proposed changes, revisions, tweaks? Right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September 17th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from September 24th, 2024.
Motion by Azar, support.
Support.
Right, support by Zelensky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Klavansky.
Klavansky. Okay, Klavansky. It's going to take me a minute to get it right, but I will get it right eventually. So that takes us to our next item on our agenda, which is call to audience. At this time, anyone from the audience who would like to comment on anything to the Board of Zoning Appeals, on any issue that is not currently on the agenda, you're welcome to do so. I'm opening this public hearing for call to audience at 7:08 p.m. Seeing no one to take us up on it, I'm going to close it at 7:08 p.m. and move on to the next item on our agenda, which gets us to item 5A, consideration of a dimensional variance at 910 Hilton Road. So we've got a request here for a dimensional variance for a property that falls in the MXD2 zoning district. The applicant would like to construct a garage on the premises that would be 3 feet from the rear lot line. A garage is an accessory structure under the zoning ordinance, and under Article 24, Section 302 of the ordinance, an accessory structure on a lot outside of R1 or R2 must be 10 feet from the rear lot line. So our applicant is basically looking for a 7-foot dimensional variance. Staff, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, Thank you so much for that general introduction. I did prepare a few slides just so we can all understand the existing conditions and the proposed conditions visually, as well as for our viewers at home. So as you can see on the slide in front of you, again, just an overview of that standard from which the applicant is requesting a variance from. The accessory structure on all other lots, in this case, the mixed-use zoning district, that 10-foot requirement is shown in front of you. So the property is located on the northeast corner of the intersection at Hilton Road and Wordsworth Street, just south of East Marshall Street. It is an existing commercial site. You can see from the aerial image, that's the general location. There's also a Google Street image from back in 2023 showing what the street visual impact would be as currently exists. As you can see, that is also the existing zoning district and layout of this area of the city. So we do have mixed use to the north, south, and west, and there are residential properties that exist to the east and northeast. So as proposed, the garage is going to be situated within the northeast corner of the property. You can see again on that aerial where it is in relation to the overall site. And I'm going to fast forward to the next slide for a more zoomed in image of what it is that is being proposed. Within the site, it runs north and south. There's an existing overhead easement that belongs to DTE. It's 15 foot wide. That is an existing condition of the property. And you can see that the proposed three-car garage is immediately to the east of that easement area. And there is a proposed depth of 21 feet to allow for adequate parking within that structure, and that puts us at the proposed 3-foot setback from the east property line. I've also included just a general elevation that was provided to us by the applicant of the elevations. So you'll see the upper elevation image is what would be shown along the western face. So for those cars that are going to be actually using that garage, the visual impact from the east residential property is actually shown on the bottom portion of this image. So that'll be the eastern face. And again, just for a visual reference, this is what a approximate required 10-foot setback would look like. Again, that would require a more minimized depth of a garage at this location if it were to still honor that existing easement. And just for general consideration by the board, I've provided an overview of items 1 through 5 of standard 19.07 of the ordinance. And these are items that you are to consider if you are going to grant or not grant this variance request. So those are just up there for you to consider.
Excellent, thank you very much. Anything else from staff on this right now?
Nope.
Right. In that case, I will open this to the public. Not seeing a lot of public members here, but I'll open this up for any public comment, anyone who wants to comment on this dimensional variance request. We'll open that public hearing at 7:12 p.m. Seeing none, we'll close that public hearing at 7:12 p.m. And we will move on to hear from the applicant and to entertain questions from board members. Are you the applicants with us today? Great. I'd love for you to step up and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your request. If you can go over by the microphone, that would be great. That way it can be picked up for any recording and for anyone who's viewing remotely.
So, my name is Jim O'Leary, and this is my wife, Deborah O'Leary. I'm with Prism Construction. We're the ones that actually own and occupy the building, which we've used as an office for 20-something years. Ironically, we were granted a variance. My architect, who's been my architect for 30 years, pulled out the site plan from 1997 where we came before the board for some variances when we were renovating the building originally. And we were originally, in that site plan, granted the variances with the garage on it. The economy and other things, you know, interrupted our construction schedule for a few years over there. But so the garage was never built. Obviously, the zoning laws have changed. A lot of things have changed, and so that's why we find ourselves here, asking for the variance because of the overhead line of DTE, which really never came up until a couple of years ago when I came back to try and revisit the project. So really, the crux of the matter is, without the variance, the garage isn't functional because if you, I think, this isn't exact, but the garage is approximately 21 feet deep, but if you, without that variance and you take 7 feet off it, there's no sense in building it. So that's really the issue with the variance. And one thing I would note, it probably didn't show up on those overheads, but there is, 20 years ago when we renovated the property, we put a brick privacy wall all the way around it. So there's on that eastern edge, there already is a 6-foot cinder block privacy wall. And my neighbor doesn't object to it, but you know, you'll see the upper elevation of the garage, but that's about all you see, even if, you know, moving it back to that, the 3 feet.
And to clarify, you're looking for 3 feet from that existing wall.
Exactly, yes, yep,
So there would still be a 3-foot corridor between the garage and the existing wall.
yes, exactly.
Now, one of the standards that we have to consider for a dimensional variance is whether practical difficulties exist that would stand in the way of carrying out the strict letter of the ordinance. So talk to us about that DTE easement and how that impacts your ability to construct something in that portion of the property.
Well, unfortunately, the overhead line runs right basically down the middle of our parking lot. And the unfortunate thing is they replaced it 4 or 5 years ago, but, you know, the issue probably could have been addressed then with them moving the line. But, you know, in discussions with DTE, they estimate the cost of $80,000 to, you know, move the line, and that cost would have to be, you know, absorbed by us. They're not going to pay for it, which is, you know, more than the garage would cost. So, again, with that line running there in honoring their easement and the setbacks, you know, that exist now, you'd end up with a garage that, well, really, you'd end up with a shed. You would end up with a garage that be 30 by, approximately 14. So you can't even get a car, you really probably can't even get a small trailer or anything in that size garage. So I don't know that it would make any sense to even build it. I mean, for what it would cost to build something like that. It doesn't serve any function. You know, you couldn't get a car, can't get a truck in it, can't get any, the storage use would be minimized.
And with that easement running through that center area of the property there, is it fair to say that even if DTE was willing to move the line that's there right now at a cost of $80,000
Yeah.
to you, you still have that easement there, and DTE still has the ability to come through and do anything they want in that corridor of your property?
Right.
So one of the things that we can't take into consideration when granting a variance is whether or not you have a increase in cost because of a project that you are proposing. And this is what I want to clarify, is that even though it would be expensive for DTE to relocate that line, it sounds like you would not be immune to DTE coming in 5 years later and saying, we still want to build another line there. So you got to move your garage, or you got to lower it, or knock it down, or do whatever you need to do, but we want to take advantage of our easement.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And according to my DTE rep, who I met with a couple of years ago and, you know, hammered this thing out, he said that, you know, right over in Royal Oak on Main and Lincoln, that they were renovating a Shell station there and, you know, creating one of these mega markets. And they determined that their power line was, you know, the setback, they went ahead and did it, and they didn't meet the setback, so they were in the process, so they were in litigation over it, and they were going to make the property owner there shave off the back of, concrete building. So, which he said, in the future, they could do if we were to proceed and build a garage there. So, not that I would, but he said it's happened, so.
Yeah, that, understood, that's kind of the point I'm getting to.
Yeah.
DTE could still make you take it down.
Right, exactly.
Built it with the easement in place.
Yes.
I want to, I noticed that this property, your property juts a little bit further into the residential section of the street in a way that many of the other properties running up and down Hilton don't.
Yep.
Is that a unique condition of your property over there?
It is. That property is one of the oldest properties in Ferndale, maybe the oldest, but it was the original, that's a Prairie Foursquare home. We, at a substantial cost, several $100,000, renovated that building and actually won some awards from Oakland County when we did. We restored it to its original function. But when we were doing that, a woman in her 80s came by and said, "That I'm glad to see you renovating the building. That was my uncle's farm." And she said, "I have pictures of myself." She used to walk up and down the street to the market there. "I have pictures of myself on a horse in front of it. Would you like to see them?" And a week or so later, she brought them back, and she said, "That's me. I'm 7 years old on this horse." And the pictures are in the Ferndale Historical Museum now, but she explained to me that her uncle owned all that property. In the picture she showed, there's nothing all the way to 9 Mile, there's nothing all the way to 8 Mile, there's nothing on the east side. He owned 5 or 10 acres. And actually, if you were to go from 8 Mile to all the way to 9 Mile, there's an alley all the way through, except there. He, owning all the property, he didn't allow him to put an alley through, but you can go all the way. And now there's an easement, but there's no alley. And anyway, that is because he owned that land and all of it. So when we bought it in 1996 or 7, that part there, that was actually that parcel where we were hoping to build the garage, that was actually a residential lot. There were actually 2 garages on the property when we bought it. Neither of them in very good shape. We tore them down. And we combined the lots together so that we could build, one garage. But I think the unique character of the lot is because the man, I think it's McElroy, or I'm not sure, he was the original owner of all the property and all the land there. So, and he had 2 the original property had 2 garages with it, so.
So is that something unique about your property, the fact that the alleyway that runs north and south on the backside of Hilton Road just doesn't go through that property, and while you have an easement that goes right across a portion of your actual property, from most of the other property owners on that strip, the easement is over the alley?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's basically it.
If you don't mind staying up at the podium for the time being, I want to open this up to other board members to ask any questions that they might have of you at this time. Thank you.
Acting Chair. So I would like to commend you on how that property is taken care of. I drive by there often. I live not far away from that corner of Hilton.
Oh, thank you.
I often admire not only how that property is maintained, but how it looks and how it complements the surrounding area.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Now, since I do drive by there very often, I did want to ask you about, the use for this garage. Now, I noticed that there are construction materials, bricks,
Yep.
wood, other things being stored in that rear yard there. Now, for the staff, I'm fairly confident that accessory outdoor storage is not permitted otherwise within that MXD1 zoning district. So will this be addressing that outdoor storage? Will it be going inside the building, or is it existing approval?
Going to be going inside the storage, yeah.
Okay.
That was always our hope. I mean, personally, I think it would clean it up a lot, And there was always intended to be a garage there, but like I said, we finished construction on it in 2001, 2002, and the economy just kept sliding. And like a lot of people, ourselves included, it got to a point where we thought, well, there's no sense investing any more money in this property because we may lose it, given what went on, in 2007, 8, 9, and 10. So we just stopped. And we had already put way too much money into the property, honestly. So we just put the whole thing on hold. Fortunately, we were able to, survive and keep the property and keep our business. But, very difficult times for a lot of people. And a lot of people lost their properties. So anyway, yeah, I think it would finish the property.
Yes, well, I'm glad to hear that your business is still doing well. I'm glad that it will address some of those items being stored there. As far as, the use of the garage, I'm assuming it will be serving your business, not for private use for,
No, it's just for storage.
Okay.
Yeah.
and then what are your expected hours of operation? Generally with those setback standards, we like to keep the nuisance away from existing single-family residential or existing multiple-family residential properties.
People are there 9 to 5, 9 to 6, something like that.
Okay.
And I have real good relations with my neighbors all the way around. So
Excellent.
try to keep it that way.
All right. That's all I have for now, Chairman. Acting Chair.
Great. Any other questions at this time?
Yeah, through the chair, you said that there's, first, I agree with Nicholas. Great-looking property. You guys
thank you.
should be proud of how you've been great stewards of the community.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You said that there's an existing 6-foot privacy wall there
Yes.
currently?
Yes.
And the eastern view for your neighbors there, will be that plus, how much height of the garage?
I
It's
think
17
the garage
foot?
is like 17 feet.
So an additional 11, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which actually, my neighbor's not here, but, oh, you are? Oh, you're here. I was just gonna say, my neighbor's not here, but it might help address, there's a lighting issue in our yard, and we talked about this a year or so, and I said, well, we're gonna build this garage, and that might block some of the lighting, because, we have commercial lighting on the building, and they're in their backyard sometimes, and at night it's too bright. So anyway, I'm just gonna say, well, ironically, I don't know that my neighbor would mind it being a little higher, but I think it's 17 feet. It's not.
Yeah.
It's, the design of the garage complements the building. It's a hip roof, all the way around, so.
Oh, great.
Just be a transition, really, of that.
Thank you. I appreciate the considerations for your neighbors, too. That's really great to
Yeah.
hear. Yeah. That's all I had at the moment.
Through the chair, quick question. I think just to kind of gauge the actions that might have been taken to have other proposals beforehand, and it was interesting to learn that it's mostly for storage purposes. I know that, so the curb cutout doesn't quite, I guess where I'm going is, was there consideration to have a garage facing the Wordsworth Street?
Oh, before?
Yeah,
No,
okay.
no.
Okay, because I think with that, if it were turned that way, it could be possible to fit between the easement and the brick wall with a 10-foot variance. That would require it, obviously not being a 3-car garage,
Yeah.
rather a 1-car garage. But it sounds like there was no kind of other study to have a 1-car garage and
Well,
storage space.
No, the original garage on the original site plan that was approved was 30 by 50. It was, when we, in, discussions with Melissa and stuff, the original plan I brought a couple years ago was 30 by 50, but then we needed other variances, and so we changed it. So I wouldn't, if I had to turn it and face Wordsworth, I wouldn't do it. It would, there would be no part, there'd be no, it would, interrupt the access to the yard. It'd be better off just without it at that point.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the comment I made earlier was it doesn't quite line up with the curb cutout.
Oh, no, right, that curb cut honestly was, we put the parking lot, we were kinda just guessing when we did that, so the curb cut is actually probably a little bigger than it should be. But I don't mind the green space, but ideally that curb cut wouldn't have been that big. But we poured the curb before we built the wall, years ago, so.
Okay, yeah, thanks for answering.
Oh, no problem. Takes me back 20 years.
Through the chair. Not so much questions, but just wanted to confirm things. So they are still meeting the parking requirements with this structure. It looks on here that they're required to have 12 and there will be 14? Okay. And I know we're not reviewing the new gate and fence, but that would meet current zoning requirements?
I believe so, yes. They are currently going through a simultaneous administrative change review, so all of the items that would need to meet ordinance are still under review. This was just an item that they wanted to take care of in addition to before they move forward with completion of that process.
Thank you. And so things that are normally reviewed under site plan approval, like dumpster placement, green space, all of that is being reviewed if needed administratively. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, you mentioned there's still going to be a 3-foot easement. Are you going to, you'll be able to get all the way around the garage
Oh,
just
yeah.
for safety
Yeah.
purposes? Okay,
Yeah.
great, okay.
And there's also, what, I don't know if you see it on the printer or not, it's called out, there's also, there's a 1-hour firewall too.
Okay.
On the back of that garage.
Oh, great, I
That's,
hadn't seen that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
So,
you, yeah.
So the proposed structure then is fire-rated construction for the garage,
Yeah, the back wall,
back wall?
yeah. But the garage itself is also gonna be brick, so.
All right, you can take a seat if you want. Well, if we have more questions we come up with, which we might, we'll call you back up to the podium. Any board discussion on this matter? Nothing, no comments? Okay.
I think the questions were answered well.
Yeah, I'm going to give them the opportunity to weigh in. We had a public hearing already, and at that time, there were no members of the public here. Because we're getting through this meeting on a very quick basis, we do have the neighbors here now, so I want to give the neighbors an opportunity, if you'd like to address the board and talk about any thoughts you have about this proposed project. You're welcome to do so. Yeah, you would go up to the podium.
You were late because of the train, of course.
Yeah, I live right over there too. I know exactly how it is. I'm going to reopen the public hearing at
Yeah.
7:33 PM and give you guys an opportunity to talk. If you could just say your name. say where
Ebony
you live, and
Trezell,
Let us know what you think.
and I'm the neighbor with Jim, and his property is gorgeous, and he's a great neighbor, great neighbor. I just have 2 questions. I looked at the drawings, and the drawings look beautiful. And if it's going to be anything like your property, I trust that, I'm going to be very happy with it. And the drawings, I just wanted to ensure that there's going to be no lights on the back coming into the yard. And then the second is you had a automatic fence.
Yeah.
Will that automatic fence beep going in and out?
It'll be going.
So usually when I've seen, especially with companies where when it's opening and closing, there's a beep, beep, beep.
No, there's not
No beeping. Okay, those are my, those are my only two questions.
You'll receive into where that wood fence is now. It'll be another wood fence, but there'll be no noise.
Okay. Okay. Oh, those were my only questions, and I look forward to watching it being built.
Thank you.
All right.
So do I.
Thanks very much for your feedback. All right, we'll close the public hearing then at 7:34. Right, for any further discussion on this, I will note that while we do not use we don't rely on permitted uses on other properties in other districts as a grounds for accepting or denying a variance. I do want to note that if this were a residential property, if it was R1 or R2, then a garage could be built as of right up to 3 feet from the lot line if it were fire-rated construction in the garage. So what's being requested is not completely outside of the norm for the city of Ferndale at large. You know, it's still a variance from what is permitted in MXD2. So for a variance to be granted, the board needs to be convinced that there is a special circumstance with this property. But if permitted, we're not looking at something that would be unusual for the city generally. So any further discussion, or is anyone prepared to make a motion to grant or deny the variance?
Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the dimensional variance application and allow a variance of 7 feet between accessory structure and rear property line when a separation distance of 10 feet is required at permanent parcel number 25-35-301-020, commonly known as 910 Hilton Road, after a public hearing was held as set and published for this date and place. The motion is accompanied by the following findings. 1, that the special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. 2, that literal interpretation of the provisions of this code will deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same terms of this code. 3, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. 4, granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that this code denies to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. And 5, that no conforming use of neighboring lands, structures, or buildings in the same district and no permitted use of lands, structures, or buildings in other districts are considered grounds for the issuance of a Further, the requirements of Section 19.07B are met.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve by Fiore. Any support?
Second.
Supported by Azar. Let's take a roll call vote for this one.
Azar,
Yes.
Fiore,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Yes.
Klovansky, Sabatini.
Yes.
All right. With 5 votes to approve, that meets the requirement of the ordinance that there have to be at least 4 votes to approve a dimensional variance. Applicants, congratulations. Your variance is granted.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you taking the time to give us the information we needed to make this decision a little bit easier than they sometimes can be. And you do have a little bit of a unique piece of property there. I'm very familiar with it. I live on Academy in Hilton.
Oh, okay.
I'm by there all the time. And with the way you kind of jut into the neighborhood there,
Yeah.
I believe there is a hardship with the way that easement crosses your property, so.
Thank you. Well, what we're gonna build is only gonna just add to the value of the property in the neighborhood. It'll complement it. It won't hurt anybody's property values.
Great. and you'll block some lights for the neighbor, and you'll make sure that you have no beeps from the fence going back and forth.
No,
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
All right, that takes us to the next item on our agenda, item 5B, which is consideration of adopting Board of Zoning Appeals bylaws. So, has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the proposed bylaws that were included in the agenda packet?
Yes.
Any comments, any concerns, questions? All right, I will note that the things I found interesting in the bylaws are that, first, the bylaws clarify that the chair can make motions, which is not something that we, I think, had explicitly prohibited in the past, but during most of my time on BZA and on Planning Commission, the chair has not made motions, but has left it to board members to make motions. So that's a little bit of a tweak from what I'm used to. I think it's a useful one because sometimes meetings can stall at that point, and I don't always like to have to really push people to get something done. Let me see. Otherwise, I think the bylaws are very much in line with how we run our meetings generally, so it really shouldn't be much of a change. There is a requirement that the chairperson summarize the procedures and rules to be followed when opening a public hearing. But we'll have to keep that in mind, because that's typically not something that happens. Let's see. Oh, and the annual report to City Council. That's something that we've done a few times. We've not always done that while I have been either a board member or the chair of the BZA. So I have no other comments about the bylaws. I don't have any proposed questions on this. I'd entertain a motion to approve adoption of the bylaws if anyone's inclined to make one.
Through the chair, I've got a question on meetings. It says on A, shall hold at least 4 regular monthly meetings. And
Which section is this?
Section 4 meetings.
Section 4 meetings. Yeah, that's a good catch. I appreciate that. That is, it's not something that we typically do, because if we don't have any agenda items, we generally don't hold a meeting.
I feel as though it covers it at the end where it says meetings may be canceled by the chairperson for lack of agenda items.
I missed that, thank you. That's,
Still a pretty unique thing to include in there. I think, yeah, I think by statute you're required to meet once a year, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I'll be sure to follow up with legal counsel on this before it goes to city council.
Yeah, we may want to revise that to say something like, the board shall meet at least annually,
Yeah,
as opposed to 4 monthly meetings.
definitely.
Let's harmonize this with whatever the requirements are under Michigan law.
Yep.
And set this at the minimum. And
Definitely, yeah.
if it needs to be more than what we actually have agenda items for, we can rely on the provision that Board Member Fiore just pointed out to us. But let's not set ourselves up to have to do that more often than we need to.
Definitely.
But with that proposed tweak, I think we could still entertain a motion to adopt the bylaws with that revision. So Not hearing any motions being put on the table, and in light of the fact that we're about to potentially adopt bylaws that explicitly allow the chair to make motions, I'm going to move that the BZA adopt the proposed bylaws with the revision of Section 4A to harmonize that section with the minimum number of annual meetings as required under Michigan law.
Support.
Support by Fiore. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries, and it looks like we are adopting some bylaws with a slight revision to Section 4A.
Thank you.
Great, and that takes us to item 5C on the agenda, which is election of officers. At this point, I've been a BZA member for roughly 15 years, I think, at this point. I have been the chair of this body for the past 8 years. I have no problem continuing that in that role, but I also want to make sure that this is open for anyone who would like to take on the role of chair. I don't want to stand in anyone's way who's interested in doing it. So if anyone else is interested in stepping in to the role of chair of the BZA, please know that I will not be offended if someone else wants to be elected to that role.
I would like to nominate Chair Williamson as chair.
Support.
All right, it looks like we also need a vice chair and a secretary. Secretary we've not had before, and I took a look through the bylaws, and I'm not seeing anything in the bylaws about a secretary. What is expected to be the role of secretary?
That is a great question. That might have been an administrative error carrying over from the planning commission's recommendation at tomorrow's meeting. They'll be appointing chair and vice chair and secretary, so that is an administrative error. I apologize.
That's okay. You know, we're adopting new bylaws. I didn't know if that was something that Dan Christ was recommending we do for the BZA. But considering that city staff always put together our minutes,
Yeah.
I was curious as to what secretary would do, other than maybe review the minutes, which we're all doing
Yep.
out of each meeting anyway.
We're happy to continue being secretary.
Good. In that case, I nominate city staff to continue preparing. the minutes.
Fantastic.
Yes, that we strike the secretary position. So vice chair, we need a nomination for someone for vice chair.
It must be a member of, that is present tonight, correct?
I'm going to nominate Board Member Fiore to serve as vice chair. That's-
Maybe I should have asked the question. I would accept that nomination.
okay. I know Judy Palmer would be happy to do it. I also know Judy has served as both the chair and or the vice chair of this body for many, many years. And I'm hoping that she will continue to do so. She has great institutional knowledge. But again, you know, I'd like to have some new blood training for leadership positions on the BZA. So let's do a, let's see, I guess we don't really need to do a roll call vote here. Let's say, all in favor of the slate of BZA chair and vice chair of myself continuing as chair for the next year and Board Member Fiore serving as vice chair for the next year until we have our next election. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. That passes. Congratulations, Fiore. You're now the vice chair,
Congratulations to you.
which means you may or may not do anything for the next year. We'll see if we actually have any meetings. And that takes us to our next item, which is administrative items. I guess one administrative item that we're going to need to wrap up, we got to confirm whether Blazinski is on or off the board. I'm thinking that she is probably off the board. In fact, I'm now starting to feel like maybe we even had an email to that effect at one point, but it's just been so long and there's been so much turnover. both on the board and then among city staff that I really just can't remember. So I think before our next meeting, we want to confirm through the city clerk and who is actually a confirmed member of the board with, as far as the city is concerned and as far as city council approvals and so on. And I think the other thing that we want to do is we want to start looking at applications and recruit 1 or 2 people to be alternates on the board at this point. I know we had some alternates at one point. I don't know if they've fallen by the wayside or moved, or, you know, when we go for such long periods of time without having meetings, it can just, you know, people can just forget about it. I think we may have some people that don't even live in the city anymore that were alternates at one point. So let's clarify who our board members are, whether we have alternates, and if we don't have alternates, let's have the clerk go through the applications and find 1 or 2 people that'll do it. Any other administrative items? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to 7 board items. I have to confess that I'm not really sure what the difference is between administrative items and board items. That's never really been entirely clear to me, because I usually treat them both as though they're the same thing. I suppose a board item would be if someone is resigning from the board, or if someone is joining the board, or something along those lines. I don't think we have any confirmation of either of those things right now, as we just discussed. So that takes us to our last item on our agenda, adjournment. And we are going to clear this meeting in less than 1 hour, unless anyone has any other items that they'd like to bring to the table. All right, hearing none, I'm going to motion myself that we adjourn this meeting at 7:51 p.m. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes, and we're adjourning, 7:51 p.m. Thanks for the time tonight, everybody.
Thank you.